Hi there. My name is Ann. I am a member of Narcotics Anonymous. However, I do not represent Narcotics Anonymous, and nothing I say is should be taken as the voice of Narcotics Anonymous at all. So, with that disclaimer out of the way, I'm really excited to introduce the next few videos that will be posted. I took some time to talk to a man named Steve A, and he has been involved with the virtual meeting space in Narcotics Anonymous for a long time. Recently, as we all know, COVID hit and our meetings were driven online in order to continue to carry the message and to help addicts continue their recovery. Because as we know, the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. And a lot of where it happens is within our meetings. And so meetings went online. They discovered the virtual meeting space as far as like video meetings are concerned and phone meetings as well. Excuse me. And so maybe other types of meetings too. Possibly people are using email to meet together. I don't know because there's so many different ways that people can utilize the virtual space to help each other stay clean. That I have, it's only as limited as our imagination is. That being said, because of COVID and meetings being, going online so quickly, there was a big learning curve. And the impression, especially with the new webinars that are out and people, our World Service Office talking about developing tools and guidelines for online meetings and all of that, the impression is that this is a new thing, and it actually is not a new thing. Virtual meetings have been going on in Narcotics Anonymous for over 2 decades. And so I just love our history. And I think that we are, as a fellowship, are richer and deeper and can be even more grateful for all of what we've learned when we get to really know our history. And so I was lucky enough to be able to pin Steve A down for a nice long talk about his experience with the world of virtual NA and to share with us his experience, strength, and hope in this area. So I hope you enjoy these videos and let me know what you think. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm an addict, and my name's Steve, and I live in the UK. My clean date is actually 19th of October 1992, so a little over 27 and a half years of recovery. And yeah, my little bit of basic about me. I mean, I got clean in a treatment town, although I didn't live in a treatment town. And the story of my recovery has been involved in an awful lot of outreach one way or another. And I was lucky enough for the first 6 months of my recovery to have lots of meetings to go to, be surrounded by lots of addicts. And then I went home, and the place I lived in, there was no NA. That was in 1993. So we started meetings and did all the sort of stuff that you guys were doing in the States in the sort of the early part of the history of Narcotics Anonymous, which is kind of running around in cars, helping to support other members get meetings going in odd places. I mean, back then my nearest meeting was a 50-mile round trip, even though NA had been in the UK for about 10 years or so. And then part of my, it was an interesting experience. Was a good introduction to NA. Spent a lot of time sat in empty rooms waiting for addicts to walk through the door, but you did what you did, and we did what we did because we needed to. I created meetings, and I was involved in starting meetings because we needed meetings. If addicts walked in the door, that was a bonus. That was an added extra. And I'm pleased to say that in that particular community, some 27 years later or so, there are now 3 meetings which have gone online, interestingly. But they've made some interesting choices that maybe we could get to sort of later on about how they're doing their virtual meetings to deal with this current situation. So in 2003, I ended up moving up to an island 40 miles off the west coast of Scotland. My partner and I thought that would be a good idea. We'd finished growing kids and wanted an adventure. And we looked all over the world actually, and hit on this island 40 miles off the west coast of Scotland. As I say, called the Outer Hebrides. And I kind of hit a point in my recovery where it was I'd done a bit of research. There was technically other fellowship up there, but there was no NA. And in my naivety, I guess, I thought, well, it won't be a problem. I'll come back to the mainland quite a lot, and I can go to meetings. But my nearest actual meeting at that time was 2 days by plane or boat, which is on the Scottish mainland on the east coast. And I couldn't get there and get back to get to the meeting and get back in less than 2 days. It was a 2-day trip. So I didn't actually go to meetings very often. And I would occasionally, the first few years we were up there, I went down to the mainland quite a lot. We'd go up and down, see people, visiting family and all that kind of stuff, a couple of conventions. But slowly over time that dropped off. And I found myself after a few years just not going to meetings anymore. And I'd kind of let go of my support network a little bit. I'd kind of let go of a few of my sponsees because I didn't see how I could make that work from being so far away, and all of those kind of things that in my experience and listening to other members share, a lot of NA members will actually do at some point in their recovery and will kind of step away for a while. I was living a dream, I was living in this fantastic place. Most of it's a World Heritage site, a World Heritage site, beautiful place to live. And it was interesting, it was fantastic. Then after a few years, my life started to fall to bits. I got very ill. My partner had relapsed after quite a long time in recovery herself. Kind of lost my job, nearly lost my home, all of those things. Everything started going wrong. And, I had no real clue what to do next. And I vaguely remembered seeing a website, an NA website at one point. And our internet out there was interesting. It was still Dark Ages stuff then. Even in the middle of the 2000s, we were still on dial-up. Which anybody that understands what internet is like, that was horrific. There was no broadband until actually not long before we left. We finally got broadband, but even that wasn't spectacular, let me tell you. So, the internet wasn't something I had internet, but it wasn't something I'd really kind of given a lot of thought to in terms of where do I find recovery from where I was. Like I say, I was reminded that the UKNA had a website, so I kind of went on it and started looking around, and which kind of, I guess, in a way, kind of brings us to his first question. That she sent me a list of questions. She's a very efficient lady, fantastic. We've known each other a while. What was my first, meeting experience online? And I kind of started by connecting up with some NA forums, recovery forums in those days. I mean, Facebook back in it was not particularly big then, social media, and I found an old chat forum.
So do you mean like the bulletin board forums?
Kind of, very much like that. Yeah. It was a Simple Machines forum. So it was like the internet. I guess it was like virtual meetings as we know them today, but on sort of Valium. So it was all very slow. There was no kind of typing a message and getting instant response. It was a much slower process. So it was a bit more sedate, should we say. But I found a bunch of addicts on there, a bunch of NA members on there, with considerable clean time. A lot of them. It was called Decades Clean.
How many addicts do you think were involved with that in the beginning?
At that time, I think there were several hundred members on there, and at that time, because social media was not such a big thing, it was pretty active. And we, when I came into it, they had a service structure. They had admins and moderators, and people were taking responsibility for managing that in a way.
Pardon my chat. He's like, whenever I start doing something, he's like a 2-year-old. He's like, pay attention to me. So, okay. Is this the same Decades Clean? Did they move from there to social media?
No.
Or this is a different Decades Clean?
Yeah, that's a completely different animal.
Okay, because I didn't think that had been around that long.
No, 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 no. So actually, it was sort of euphemistically known as DC2 because it had a previous manifestation
Oh,
before
okay.
that. So I met some really good people on that site, and I was just basically asking for help. I was in a bit of a mess. I describe it these days. I was clean but not in recovery. I hadn't used, but I was not in recovery, and I needed some help. And it kind of took me back to my early days of remembering, well, how do I
Yeah.
do that?
I
And
think a
how I
lot of
did.
people get in that spot when they, I've heard a lot of members that have long time
Yeah.
clean time, but then they kind of stop doing the recovery part of it and then find themselves everything but loaded.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy clean.
Yeah.
I call it. And the other fellowship has another name for the same thing, but in NA,
Yeah.
I remember thinking, well, we need a phrase for that. And I don't know whether it had ever been coined before, but I describe myself as being crazy clean. Man as a box of frogs, but not using. And it really wasn't a good place to be, really.
Right, right.
So yeah, and those guys helped me. I mean, they basically said, "How can we help? We're glad you're here. How can we help?" And they gave me.
Did it take, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, I kind of.
Go ahead.
So when you first went to that first virtual meeting and it was on like a bulletin board or, it's all text basically. There may be some people that are listening like, what is that? Because that was a while ago. And we have newer members that may not understand, but that was just all basically just texting back and forth. It was in real time though, right? I mean, was it real time texting or?
No. It was like I said. It was you. I mean, there were time difference issues as well, as you can well imagine. So when I'm talking to people in the US and they'd be asleep, and I'd be typing whatever it was that was going on, and it wasn't so much sharing. It was just about. It was more about just kind of blogging, really. It was almost a blog. It was like a blog site, really, in a lot of ways. And you post something up.
Oh, okay. Is it kind of like what the NA.org used to have, where you could write messages there and then people could read it and respond later?
Yeah, that's the kind of format. If that gives
form.
people an idea, yeah.
Okay.
We're kind of we've kind of leaped forward. I mean, if you imagine that was. I mean, I was 16 years clean by then. So, I mean, what we're looking at, 92, 2002, back 2008, something like that, 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
But the history of virtual meetings goes back quite a lot longer than that. Or online meetings of one form or another. But that experience kind of prepared me in a way to accept the fact that I could find recovery in cyberspace. It was possible to connect with other members from an incredibly isolated and rural location.
So you felt that connection when you did.
Absolutely. And I was welcomed with open arms. I ended up being involved. I've met a lot of those people since in real life.
How did that come out in your life? Like so before you got there, you were in one place, spiritually, mentally, recovery wise, but we feel that. What was the difference you felt on the inside after connecting to that message system?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I've always believed. I mean, that if I look back at my life before I got clean, it was a, and I know this is said. We suffer from a disease of disconnection. And never felt connected to the world. It was, I mean, I've done enough work on myself. I work in the 12 steps to understand that's part of my process. But, I never felt like I belonged. I didn't feel like I had any place. But these guys, these guys in cyberspace were going, you're one of us. And I did start feeling really connected. I started feeling connected again. They encouraged me to be of service.
So thank you for watching so far. That's our first video, and Steve took us on his journey from his, beginning in NA, being of service, starting meetings in the UK, and then moving to a beautiful island off the coast of Scotland. Unfortunately, that island sounds like it was pretty isolated and put him in a precarious position with his recovery because he really lost touch with the fellowship. Fortunately, it sounds like he reconnected through the virtual world of NA, through the UK NA website, and was able to find that, that connection with other addicts. And it actually began to make a difference right away. I thought that was interesting how, as soon as he was talking with other people in recovery, he could feel that back and forth acceptance and love and hope that draws us all. And I thought it was pretty amazing that even though he didn't walk into a face-to-face meeting, as soon as he was surrounded by other people in recovery, it had a positive effect on him and helped him feel connected again. So that's where we ended this video. It sounds like he's going to get into how he was able to begin to be of service in the virtual NA world that he was becoming involved with. So if you'd like to hear that, just tap the next video and go ahead and watch that next one that will go into more detail about Steve A's experience. Thank you, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.